Good morning and welcome back to Withrow Urban Homestead. Today is June the 5th and we're going to continue our garden tour. Yesterday we looked at that side of the garden, and today we're going to start over here, near the rain barrels. We only have one sunflower over here, and this poor thing gets stuck behind the door when it's open, but it still survives, and it is going to be smaller, but it will branch out and make plenty of flowers. Over here, we have 3 moringa trees. Now, it's not an ideal location because there's a lot of shade, but I don't need full production from these trees. It is a very bushy, fast-growing tree. Right now, they're struggling because it's been so cold. But soon they're just going to explode with growth. And they're going to get more than 6 feet tall. And I use the greens, I harvest the leaves, and I make a green powder. I started them indoors and planted them out mid-May. Now along here we have more June-bearing strawberries. And just last week there was a strip right in front of me that I dug up and I planted some in the grandkids' garden, but most of them I potted up. And I'm going to wait, I'm thinking it's going to be about a month for the roots to develop. Then I'll set them out on the community shelf free for my neighbors. The strawberries were right along here, and like I said, last week I potted them up. Now the big leaves, they're going to die off, and I'll trim them when that happens. And the middle is going to produce new growth. Now here are our cosmic purple carrots. Right here was my first sowing. And if you remember, the strawberries were in that corner and they just bushed out and blocked the germination of the rest of the carrots. And in the middle, it's where we're saving the fall carrots for seed. I think there were like 4 of them, and they really leafed out, also shading out the carrot seed. So only this corner germinated. But 2 weeks ago, I sowed some more. And they've sprouted. Now these first ones sown should be ready at the end of June. And the other ones probably a month or a month and a half later. Now back here, we have fall onions and beets that I overwintered, and they're going to seed. I've saved onion seeds before, but it's the first time for me to save beet seeds, and I'm so excited. Now this is our 3rd super hoop tunnel to protect our veggies from digging squirrels and cabbage worms. Let's open it up and see what's inside. Now the second vegetable we planted in late March were our Detroit dark red beets. Many of them are ready, and they're going to be harvested, all of them, by mid-June. And back here behind me are our Ace red cabbage. And I'm growing these for dill salads. Now they're not going to be ready at the same time as the beets. So after we harvest the beets, we'll leave some of these hoops and shorten this tunnel because the cabbage is going to need protection from the cabbage worms. They've started to head up. Now both of these started inside from seed, and after I transplanted them, I did water for about 7 days, but after that, I haven't had to water at all. The only thing I've had to do is weed out the morning glories. That is my biggest perennial weed. Now let's get this covered and protected because I've still seen the white cabbage butterflies around. Like I said, the beets are going to be harvested by mid-June, just in time for the blackberries to be ready. And these are thornless. Now here in this gap, I've planted 3 lemon cucumbers. They're a small round cucumber, and those will be ready in July, and 1 sunflower. And this right here is our fall red cabbage that we protected over winter, and it's now making seeds. They're going to be ready soon. We just have to wait for them to dry and harvest them, and then we'll take out this plant. And that will give more room for the stevia and the basil to bush out. Both were planted mid-May, just a couple of weeks ago. And over here is where I like to grow my lettuce. It gets less sun over here because these berries provide some shade. And I have the varieties of my own saved seed. So I have a red oak leaf that I've been growing for 12 or 13 years. Then I have a black-seeded Simpson lettuce and some kind of red leaf. It's possible it's a romaine. It came in a free lettuce mix. I also direct sowed some French breakfast radishes. They'll eat salad every day. And this is the last sunflower. Now it's going to be smaller because it doesn't get as much sun. But for watching the birds, you can sit up in the balcony, and it's right here. So it's one of my favorite sunflowers in the garden. Then along here are our red raspberries. They're just starting to ripen now, and they're going to fruit twice, once now and later in August, September, and October until the first freeze. So they fruit twice. And down here is a second mini rose. It's just like the other one that I rescued from the old historic cemetery. It was just left in a pot and it had dried out and it was in the trash. Now this morning after our walk, I came back and the other one had been dug up. A squirrel had dug it up. So I took the time to put down some hardware cloth to protect both of them. Now this area between the houses, Dale has christened Bumblebee Breezeway. Because the bees fly back and forth through here. Now my goal with this area is beauty, not high production. Because this area gets very limited sun. Only about 2 hours of direct sun every day. And because these row houses are so tall, I want to be able to look down and see all of this beauty. And along the fence is a porcelain berry vine. The birds love this thing. It is invasive, and I do pull them out of the garden, but the cardinals, they will nest here. Haven't done it this year yet, but last year there were 3 babies along here. Now I have 4 green stalk vertical planters, and I did modify them a little bit. So I have 4 with only 4 tiers. They come 5-tier and 3-tier, and they have a 7-tier too. I bought 2 5-tier and 2 3-tier, and I made 4 4-tier. Now these are our French marigolds, and the small flowers are periwinkle. Now these are summer flowers I grew for the green stalk, but I only planted half of them because the spring flowers aren't finished yet, and I left those. And I planted out 2 green stalk with the summer flowers. And I thought, well, what do I do with these? So I planted them here in these pots. Now, if you notice, I don't have the top water reservoir on here because the side of the house is sloped. And the green stalk watering system, where you pour water in and then it trickles through, won't work properly here. The back side will stay dry, so I just hand water myself. It's just too sloped. Now I like to plant 3 pockets with perennial greens and 3 pockets with annual flowers. Now the summer flowers that I have are petunias, marigolds, and periwinkle over on the other side. I change out the annual flowers every year, but the greens are year-round. In winter, they die back, but they come back to life in the spring. So we have creeping Jenny, strawberries, and a variety of herbs. Herbs do really well on a green stalk. Now, these are the petunias and more periwinkle that I didn't plant yet. And later, when the spring flowers are finished, I'll plant those into the green stalks. The 2 green stalks with the spring flowers are still going because of less sun in this area and cool nights. Dale made this sign for me a few years ago. I just love it. The spring flowers that I took out of the summer green stalks, I saved and planted here, and they're doing well. Now let's go into the front garden. It's really small. Now these are what I call our porch pots. Any flowers I had left over, I planted in here. Now the pansies were planted in the fall, but the stalk and the snapdragons I planted for the spring, nesting birds in the area just picked them clean over and over again. The snapdragons are just tiny. The stalk did a little bit better. It's finally growing. I left in the spring flowers, but went ahead and planted the summer flowers, the leftover petunias. Now, I do deadhead all of my flowers to keep them blooming, except for the periwinkle. It does it for itself. Its flowers fall off naturally. That's one reason the pansies are still going. Every morning I deadhead the old flowers. Now along here we have more sunflowers, but these are the mammoth variety, and they're only going to make one large head and probably get about 12 feet tall. They're really growing fast. And here are our determinate bush tomatoes. And I put the tunnel up because the birds were picking these clean too. Every time all the leaves got picked off and new leaves grew, they picked them off again. And they actually killed one of the tomatoes. And I had to replant it. So I think 2 are big enough now to leave uncovered. But the middle one, I'm going to leave the tunnel on because it's still pretty small. And along here are our spicy hot peppers, red cayenne and early jalapeno. They don't like the cold, but now they're really starting to grow new leaves and they're just going to bush out quickly. And luckily, the birds didn't touch them because they don't like the spicy peppers. And here are more of our French marigolds. Now, they're not as big as ones on the side because the birds were pecking the leaves off too. I finally covered them with a net. And they all survived except for one. We did lose one. That one right there. They're going to love all the sun in this front garden. This is the sunniest, warmest spot on our property. And over here are more plants I rescued from the cemetery. So there's petunias, and I thought the other ones were geraniums, but I'm not sure. But they are pretty, and they're all surviving. And the last thing in our garden are more strawberries all along the edge. But these are ever-bearing strawberries. They're just going to keep producing fruit, mostly in the spring and then again in the fall. This year they've given us huge berries. They've really done well. Now I finished the morning watering and I've pulled all the weeds, and now it's time to go up on the balcony and enjoy the garden and read. Thank you for visiting Withrow Urban Homestead. See you later. Bye-bye.